Count Vlad Dracula. As you know, it is a very important material that has been discussed and consumed for years in both the novel and cinema markets. Count Dracula, in history, the relentless adversary of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. Did someone named Count Dracula really exist? If he did exist, how did he live? Who was he? Did he really commit such serious atrocities as claimed? Did he impale people? Did he drink their blood? Or did he commit even greater atrocities? Are all of these just from a fiction, a script, bright sentences trying to captivate people on the pages of novels? Was it all just that? Or did a person named Count Vlad Dracula really exist? Did he spend his childhood in the same palace gardens with Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror? Was he taken into the Devshirme Enderun? Did he become a person valued by the Ottomans, someone for whom they sent armies? Or was he nothing more than a Devshirme soldier, not taken very seriously by the Ottomans? Did he betray the Ottomans? Did he fail to live up to the trust of the Ottomans? In this video, we will explain all of these. Last year on Netflix, there was a series in 6 parts. It was a 6-part series about the childhood of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror and the conquest of Istanbul. There was a series, Rise of the Empire, Ottoman. Now, this series, the second season was released again in another 6 episodes. And here Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror leaves his work. Throughout 6 episodes, he deals with Count Vlad. Dracula is struggling. We received a lot of questions about this. Within this week, because it's only been a week since this second season aired, is the series really accurate? Did it narrate the events? Is there such a person in history? Is it as depicted in the series? What are the noticeable truths or inaccuracies? We examined all of these one by one for you. We took our notes. We conducted our research, and in this video, we will try to explain the truth about Count Vlad Dracula to you one by one. If you're ready, let's begin. There are 4 important regions that the Ottoman Empire faced during its Balkan conquests. One of them is Wallachia, another is Moldavia, one is Bosnia, and the other is Herzegovina. Let's not forget, during the conquest movements of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, these 4 important regions were incorporated into the Ottoman Empire. Bosnia, Herzegovina, Wallachia, and Moldavia. Normally, the incorporation of Wallachia and Moldavia under Ottoman protection happened during the reign of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror's father, Celebi Mehmed's son. The second, it will happen during the reign of Murad, Sultan Dua. When we say Murad, we mean the one who besieged Istanbul many times, advanced a lot in the Balkans. Varna in 1444, Veginu, Battle of Kosovo. In the first part of this video, I will tell you about the life of Count Dracula. Quickly, who was he? Who was his father? How did he enter political life? His introduction to the Ottomans, his upbringing. I will explain these. This will be the first part. Immediately after, we will review the series on Netflix in light of this information. And there are some very nice questions from you. I will try to answer these questions in the details of the series. Look, everything starts in the year 1431. Count Dracula's name is Vlad. But this is the third. Vlad, the father and son share the same name. Don't get confused. The father of the famous figure we call Count Dracula is Charles II. Count Dracula is the third. Vlad the second. In 1431, Vlad organized a coup with his circle in the Wallachia region and took control of everything. He established an order called the Order of the Dragon. Since Dracula, Azo means dragon, and he founded the Order of the Dragon, he would receive the nickname Dracula, meaning dragon. During that period, later, due to this nickname, his son, the third Vlad, will be called the son of Dracula, the dragon. You see, it means both dragon and devil. So even in his childhood, he was called the son of the devil. When we learn about his future actions, we will see that it aligns very painfully, because his own people also call him Tepes or Vlad Tepes. The Romanians will call him Tepes, meaning the cruel one. The Ottomans will call him the Impaler Voivode. In fact, the Ottomans will also give him the nickname the Butcher of Infidels. You know Hajjaj, the famous one who killed many companions and became notorious for his bloodshed in the early period of Islamic history. The butcher of infidels, the impaler voivode, these are the names given by the Ottomans. In 1432, Vlad Dracula, who took control of everything, of course, strengthened his unity and power, and 10 years passed in 1442. And in 1442, he rebelled against the Ottomans. He had the dream of establishing an independent state centered in Wallachia. Of course, in 1442, on the Ottoman throne was Sultan Murad II. Murad was there. He was confronted, defeated by the Ottoman forces, and all sought peace. Look, there is a rule in the law of states. Two communities, groups, or states go to war with each other. One wins, the other loses. The loser says to the winner, will you let me remain as a ruler or on my throne? It depends on the mercy of the other side. Generally, the majority do not leave him on the throne. Instead, they take his head and leave a puppet leader loyal to them. But the second Murad does not do this. He says that the second Murad, the second Vlad, asks, will you let me remain as a ruler on my throne here? Well, I will let you. Then when I return to Edirne, Istanbul has not yet been conquered. You know, if you do something wrong or deceitful to me, then what will we do? I mean, the second Murad doesn't say this. Assume he said this, because this will surely cross his mind. Even before he says this, the second Murad knows what is necessary and will make his offer. He says, there are 3 boys. Let me hand over 2 of them to you. The eldest son, a young man who withdrew early from the stage of history, which we do not know much about. I will explain this when the time comes. When and how he died. The middle one is the subject of our video today. That is Count Vlad Dracula. He was 12 years old when he was handed over to the Ottomans. And then there's his younger brother Radu. Radu was 6 years old, 12 and 6 years old. In any case, a child over 15 would not be taken. In the Ottoman education system, such a child could not be educated. His brain wasn't being washed, his past wasn't being made to be forgotten, but the state, the Ottoman education system, was making such an investment in this child. This child loved the Ottomans. Even if he knew his father's and mother's past, the doors opened before him would be much more valuable and higher than the ones his father could open for him. And because of this, they did not betray the Ottomans. In 99% of cases, those who left the Enderun and betrayed could be counted on the fingers of one hand. It was that rare. Vlad was 12 years old. His brother Radu died. They were 6 years old. They became subjects of the Ottomans. The Ottomans did not take these children and throw them into dungeons. You understand why they take the children, right? In other words, as a guarantee, so that the father doesn't do anything wrong against the Ottomans. Because what is the most valuable thing to a person? Not their money, not their wealth, but their children. Don't take this the wrong way. Even Ottoman sultans, when they were princes, were given as hostages to foreign states as part of guarantee agreements. For example, the first Murat sent his son Yıldırım Bayezid to Istanbul. He was held hostage by the Romans. So there are examples. In the Anatolian Seljuk period, Gıyaseddin Keyhusrev, the first Gıyasettin, went to Istanbul as a hostage. He stayed there for a period. The second, Kılıç Arslan gave his youngest son as a hostage to assure them, I will not do you wrong, I will not cause any trouble. A non-aggression pact. This is important. Of course, these children are not kept in dungeons. They are educated in the most prestigious schools of the Ottoman education system. After the children arrive, they are sent to Kütahya. Kütahya is the educational district of the Ottoman Empire. They stay in Kütahya for a while. Then at some point they are sent to Tokat. For example, I have been to Tokat many times. Unfortunately, there is such an understanding in Tokat. Many people know that Count Dracula came to Tokat and stayed there. But they tell it like this. As if he was a grown adult. The Ottomans captured him, imprisoned him in Tokat. He was imprisoned in Tokat for 4 or 5 years. No. He was around 14, 15 years old when he was brought. He stayed in Kütahya for a few years. Then he came to Tokat. He stayed in Tokat as well. He was educated there along with his brother. Finally, he was sent to Edirne. Murat's capital was Edirne. And in that palace where Prince Mehmet was also educated, in the new Edirne palace and in the garden of the palace with Prince Mehmet, there was a brief period where they were educated side by side. But look, in that series on Netflix, Ohu, they are like blood brothers. They've become blood brothers. He calls him Mehmet, he calls him Vlad, and so on. What is this? Is such a thing possible? In the Ottoman education system, in the Enderun, no student would even say you to another. It's very inappropriate. You exist. You informally does not exist. In an environment where people do not address each other informally, addressing each other by name is namamam out of the question, especially when one has become a sultan. The other is going to be a voivode, a ruler in Wallachia. You can't just say Mehmet or something like that. This is the scriptwriter's. It shows the shallowness of the scriptwriter. It shows how unfamiliar they are with this subject. That's already our biggest problem. Because we don't make our own documentaries or films. Others create them about our historical figures, and they always construct them according to their own mindset. And as a result, extremely exaggerated products emerge. As I said when I reviewed the series, these kinds of issues, unfortunately, I will lay them out for you one by one. We will have seen and learned the truths. Then what happens? Children are entrusted. They are educated and raised. Where did we last leave off? We left off in 1442. By the year 1444, the then Hungarian King Vladislaus collaborates with regional governor Hunyadi János, and they enter into a Crusader alliance. In this Crusader alliance, the Ottoman Empire is to be attacked and supposedly eliminated. Plans are made based on this. Meanwhile, in the region of Wallachia, the ruler, the second, Murad, is also informed, we are embarking on such a large uprising. We will attack, and you are a Christian, you are the voivode of Wallachia. You will join us. He also joins in the Battle of Varna in 1444. Varna is in Bulgaria today. Did you just cross our border? 1.5 hours later, there. The Ottoman forces under the command of the second, under the management of Murat, rout this Crusader army. A great defeat occurs. For example, in the series, the second, Murad calls the children, "Father betrayed me. Should I kill you now?" Something like that. They raged and thundered. We don't know if such a thing happened in real life. But because we know the general education system of the Ottomans, the state structure, and their approach to such situations, the second, knowing Murad's stance, calling little children, shouting, calling, "Father betrayed me. What should I do to you now?" and so on. You will pledge allegiance to me. You will swear. Such things are nonsense. There is no example of such things for us to say this happened. But the father apologizes. "Yes, I made such a mistake. You also defeated us at Varna. I won't do it again," he says. And the second, Murad accepts the apology and continues to keep him on the throne. The children are still by his side. Another 2 years pass. In 1446, this time King Frederick and Hunyadi János want to attack the Ottomans again with a new alliance. Preparations are completed. The second, Vlad, is sent a message. "You are with us. We are attacking again." You know how a defeated wrestler never gets enough of losing. They also want to attack again and again. The second, Vlad, says, "No, I made a mistake. I cannot make another mistake. My 2 sons are in their hands. I will not be with you," he says. Upon this, Hunyadi János enters Wallachia with his army. He kills the second Vlad, his wife, the entire family, and Vlad's brother, Radu's elder brother. During the reign of Murad II, there is another major crusade. This happens 2 years after the event I described. Where did we leave off last? In 1446. 2 years later, in 1448, the second Battle of Kosovo. So before the second Battle of Kosovo, they gather again. This time, they are preparing again for the second Battle of Kosovo. In those days, in 1448, the second Murad, along with an army he dispatched in Vula. This time, the third in Vula, a counter-command gives him an order. He says, "I am sending you to conquer Wallachia." That is to ensure complete control over the area. Why is he sending him? Because 2 years earlier, in 1446, Hunyadi entered with his army and completely took over Wallachia, which was a vassal, semi-dependent on the Ottomans. "Go and liberate it and sit on your father's throne to become the voivode of Wallachia." Our third, Vlad Dracula, sets out, but unfortunately he is defeated. His army disperses, and the Ottomans exile him to Moldavia due to this failure. Failures are absolutely unforgivable for the Ottomans. He is sent away to be disciplined. He is kept there for a while. His situation now is monitored. If he improves, he returns. He is reassigned. He is moved around to 2 or 3 places like this. Then he is brought to the center and elevated to the high and prestigious position he deserves. He is exiled from Moldavia. They say that the Ottoman Empire, the second Murat, you will stay here for a while. In other words, we don't want you in the capital at the center for a while. The situation will be examined there. And in 1448, the second Kosovo victory occurs. They come again. He has allied with the Hungarians. The European army, Murat defeats them and achieves a great success. After this great success in 1448, things calm down. For how long? Not very long. In fact, the second Murat passes away after a while. The young Prince Mehmet, known as Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror, takes his place. As soon as he ascends the throne, he immediately begins major preparations. The siege of Istanbul in 1453 leads to the conquest of Istanbul. All of Europe is in astonishment. They can't even move a finger. 3 years pass. This time, the conqueror sets his sights on Belgrade. He plans to take Belgrade in 1456. He is contemplating that place. Of course, in those days, while the Ottomans were marching towards Belgrade, they had mended relations with the Hungarians after the conquest of Istanbul. In other words, relations with Vladislaus are good. Hunyadi, the voivode of Transylvania, is extremely disturbed by this situation. And against the Ottomans' ambitions in Belgrade, against their ambitions, he positions himself to protect Belgrade against the ambitions for Belgrade, which is the key to Central Europe. What should I do? What should I do? Meanwhile, our attention turns to Vlad III. Vlad is engaged in counteraction. At that time, he was in exile in Moldavia. He looks at him and says, "Let me give you an army." He says, "Support us against this Ottoman siege of Belgrade." Our Dracul, having received this army, joins the defense of Belgrade against the Ottomans this time. After the defense, he finds an opportunity and turns towards Wallachia, and in the blink of an eye, he captures Wallachia with the army given to him. And he becomes the voivode of Wallachia. Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror sends a message, "I hereby declare my submission to you." He asks, "Please keep me here, allow me to stay." Sultan Mehmet approves this. For 3 full years, from 1456 to 1459, he pays his taxes regularly and promptly. He even comes to Istanbul himself every year. He appears before Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror. He personally delivers his taxes and once again expresses his loyalty and oath until 3 years later, in 1459, from 1459 to 1462, he does not pay his taxes for a full 3 years. Of course, Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror is displeased by this, but waits. He waits to see what he will do, what will happen. Meanwhile, he came to power. In 1456, yes, he took power and took control, declaring his allegiance to the Ottoman Empire. After coming to power, he became the bloodthirsty figure we know from novels and films, the one who impaled people. The bloody tyrant emerges, the one who sews babies' heads to their mothers' chests, displaying atrocities beyond imagination. The first year of his reign is 1557. There, in his own Romania, there are clans. The clan leaders we call boyars in Romania. They are the nobles, the aristocrats. He gathers them. He hosts a banquet for all the boyars at his palace. And he says, "Are you loyal to me from now on? Are you devoted?" "Yes, we are devoted," they say, and so on. He then says at the end of the meal, "Don't forget, executions always happen after meals. No one kills anyone on an empty stomach." Historically, people are usually fed first, then executed. Interesting, but that's how it is. After the meal was served and this conversation was over, Vlad became contracted. To them, he says, "You betrayed my father. You remained silent while my brothers were killed. You did not defend them," he says, "and I will have you killed." The dragons are already ready and waiting. Immediately, soldiers enter the dining hall. One descends upon each noble. They drag them out by the collar. The stakes have been prepared, and they are impaled one by one. In the meantime, I apologize. Unfortunately, within the video, there will be descriptions that I do not enjoy narrating and that you will find quite disturbing to listen to. There will be some depictions. I will try to gloss over them as much as possible. But I am obliged. We have to talk about these as well, because this man is a savage. One of the things that disturbed me the most in this Netflix series, there are foreign commentators on the man's brutality. You know, this is a documentary series. From time to time, some foreign commentators step in. They provide narrations. Then it transitions back to the fiction. It moves on to reenactments. I noticed that a few foreign speakers subtly legitimized the spilling of blood by the antagonist in their speeches. I mean, yes, he was brutal, he was spilling blood, but immediately there were buts added. But it was like this, but it was like that. He had childhood traumas. They took him to construction sites as a child. They would say, for heaven's sake, what is this? There was a glorification of the antagonist. You would be astounded. It's a shame. The man is cruel, treacherous. What are you glorifying about the man? We will get to that. I will explain those to you as well. There is a brutal torture method called impalement. Wooden stakes are prepared. Prepared wooden stakes. Honestly, look, I'm making this from his own wood. This broadcast, I hadn't thought of showing you something like this while doing the broadcast, but as I was explaining, I turned my head. It caught my eye. I had long stakes made back in the day to use as bean poles in the field. So it caught my eye. It came to mind. These are my bean poles, but of course rain and oil have been on them. These have rotted. As you can see, look, because they have rotted, they are now waiting to be burned. Imagine this as a 2.5 meter long stick. I had ordered about 100 like this. You see the tip, don't you? God forbid, I mean. First, imagine it being oiled. After being oiled, if a person, excuse me. Imagine it being slowly moved from the top to the chest, and from this exact part, look, imagine it being removed from exactly this part, not to demonstrate. And they do it so skillfully. Vital organs are not damaged. For example, the heart is not damaged. They bring it out by moving it through the inside without causing serious damage to the stomach and intestines. But of course, the body is completely pierced from the bottom and the top. It is torn apart, and that person is in great pain. In that state, in a way like being crucified inside a stake, they remain in this position, agonizing. Sometimes it would take a few days for them to die. Very painful, very painful. So, such an incident. Count Vlad Dracula was such a savage man. First, he gathers the boyars, the leaders of his own community, and weeks later, he gathers the beggars of his own country. He gathers those in need of help. He feeds them well, gives them drinks. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? They say, we are happy. He listens to their troubles. He asks, do you want to be free from all your worries and troubles? They all say, of course we do. He says, okay, I will save you. Let's see. They come again to the places. They burn and expose them, just like they did to the boyars. And this time, the accident is placed upon them. A man who is an enemy to those with weaknesses. Look, not only to Muslim Turks, he also inflicted strange tortures on his own Romanian people. Today, in Romania's hero of the region, the Romanians are eating solid bread because of the countercool. But come and see, he is a great savage. A solid savage, that is. He also hanged and slaughtered the Hungarians. He inflicted great tortures on the Romanians, the Bulgarians, meaning the Christian Bulgarians in that region, and of course mostly the Muslim Turks. He says it with his own mouth. He says, throughout my life I impaled over 23,000 people. Over 23. He says this with pride. This situation is shown in the series. So what happens next? These oppressions begin a year after he ascends the throne in 1457. The oppressions continue until 1459 and then until his death. In 1459, he stops paying taxes. In 1461, Fatih conquered Trabzon. When Fatih conquers Trabzon, the counter-council sends him a diplomatic delegation because this is a rule. In international relations, he doesn't send taxes, but sends a congratulatory delegation. He congratulates him for conquering Trabzon and taking the Trabzon Greek Empire. He is a bit concerned, of course. Fatih has become even stronger. He didn't just stop after taking Istanbul. He took Trabzon and will gradually eliminate all his enemies. When Fatih sends the diplomatic delegation, Dracula becomes hopeful. He says, hold on, this is our boy. After all, he was educated and raised in our lands. He knows Turkish customs, traditions, and culture, he says. Is he thinking he made a mistake? He says, along with this, I will send my own envoys with his envoys and give him a chance, he says. Look, a great leader, Fatih Sultan Mehmet. If it were someone else, they would never give a chance. Directly crushing his head. Fatih. Between 59 and 61, waited 2 years. Mom, the envoys go. That was also depicted in the series. When the envoys enter, the count says, why didn't you take off your hats? They say, as the Ottoman society, we walk around with our headgear. They say we do not take them off. He then says, you are disrespecting me. He says, I know what to do to you then. The envoys, they nail their headgear to their heads. Did he do such a thing in history? Yes, he did. He killed the first envoys bitch of the conqueror by nailing their headgear to their heads. And he sent the severed heads to Istanbul in this manner. Of course, this causes a great uproar. Upon this, Fatih becomes very angry. He says, let me send one last advisor to him. If it were someone else, they would directly send the army by now. An advisor? But this advisor is extremely experienced. He must be a man who knows politics. Who is this man? Mr. Hamza. There is a major drawback in the Netflix series. In the series, there is Fatih's wife, Gulbahar Hatun. You know, today in front of the Qibla wall of the Fatih Mosque, just a little ahead of Fatih's tomb lies buried. Second, Bayezid's mother, Gulbahar Hatun. Now, this elderly envoy sent by Gulbahar Hatun is portrayed as Hamza Bey, over 70 years old at the time, as Gulbahar Hatun's father. Even Gulbahar Hatun comes to Fatih's side in the series. She says, if only you hadn't sent me, something might happen to my father. This man is very cruel, a bloodshedder and such. Fatih says that Hamza Bey knows him very well. Hamza Bey knows his childhood. He says there won't be any trouble. Look, I am telling a historical fact. There is no connection between Gulbahar Hatun and Hamza Bey. In fact, I wondered if I was wrong, so after the series, I called some influential and authoritative names. I researched the primary sources. We do not know the past of Gulbahar Hatun. There are those who say Gulbahar Hatun is of Balkan origin. For example, some say she came from Kosovo. Some say she is Albanian. Some say she is French. So there are many things. For example, Evliya Çelebi tells something different in his travelogue. Babinger tells something different. But definitely Gulbahar Hatun, the Gulbahar Hatun of Fatih's era, we do not know where she is from. Secondly, when Gulbahar Hatun's father is mentioned, the name Abdullah is used. So a person, if there is an expression like Abdul Karim, meaning Abdul Karim, Abdullah, which gives the meaning of servant of God, then his father might have come from a non-Muslim background. The possibility of being a Devshirme is very high. But besides this, there are also those who say she is the daughter of a Turk from Tokat because of the magnificent work she has there. For Gulbahar Hatun. But it is definitely not related to Hamza Bey because we know Hamza Bey's life very well. By the way, let me give you another piece of good news. Now this video is being published today, next Wednesday. A few days later, as a continuation of this video, my video about Hamza Bey's life will be released. I personally went to Bursa for that. I filmed it at the tomb of Hamza Bey. In great detail, Hamza Bey and his brother Bayezid Pasha, who is my father Pasha, who is Hamza Bey, they were with Çelebi Mehmet in Amasya Merzifon during the interregnum period. They ensured that Çelebi Mehmet became the second founder of the Ottoman Empire. So these are very important figures. I'm including the Hamza Bey file in our next video. Please watch it from there. Don't forget this detail. Then what happens? Afterwards, Çelebi Mehmet sends Hamza Bey. Of course, this time Vlad also sets up an accident for Hamza Bey. And we arrive at the year 1462, 1 year after the conquest of Trabzon. Both the first sent envoys and Hamza Bey and his team are set up for an accident. Immediately after their martyrdom, Fatih, of course, ends all his leniency and sets out. As you know, there are some absurdities in the series here. Now Fatih is with his army and the Grand Vizier, Mehmet Pasha, is also present. He comes up to the Danube River. When he reaches the river, he starts to think, come on, how are we going to cross this river? How are we going to cross it? Oh, for God's sake. We're talking about Fatih. We're talking about a strategic genius who conquered Istanbul and eliminated the empire of Trebizond. People like this plan their campaigns months, even years before they set out. Everything is considered step by step. In that army, where will a horse graze? Where will it spend the night? Where will the people eat their meals? And from where and how will that food be brought there? All of these are planned. There is no such nonsense. They went to the banks of the Danube. They are waiting there nicely. Oh God, how should we travel? If we cross over, they have set an ambush for us on the other side. They will cut us down. They will kill us, ambush us. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Can something like this happen? Do you know how it actually happened? From this side of the Danube, they showered roses with cannons, causing panic there, and they crossed in that chaos. In reality, nothing like that happened. In reality, this is what happened. In the spring of 1462, Fatih had a fleet of 150 galleys over the Black Sea. 150 galleys? He boarded around 200,000 soldiers and entered the Danube River from the Black Sea with the galleys. Like a pasha, he crossed the Danube River to the exact location. He arrived at the region where he would conduct the campaign and landing. The ships docked there. They crossed over, and an intense struggle with Dracul ensued. I mean, what is Dracul's strength, really? If you add it up, he has about 20,000 soldiers, if that. Some sources say he came with 100,000 people. Others say 200,000 for Fatih. We don't know for sure. But even if it's 100,000, he has cannons with him. He has mortars. He has a significant military force. There is the Janissary army. There is Grand Vizier Mehmet Pasha. What can he do? There is only one thing he can do. And what is that? He will wage guerrilla warfare. He will use hit-and-run tactics. He will try to wear down Fatih that way. Dracul has a plan like this. He says, I grew up among them. He knows Turkish very well, like a native language. He has soldiers with him who know Turkish well. We will dress in Janissary uniforms. We will disguise ourselves in Janissary uniforms. He says, we will infiltrate his tent and kill him. Also, in this series on Netflix, a lot has been done. There are folk legends. Dracula later becomes more royalist than the king himself, you know. The king dies. When he dies, he is this much. 200, 300 years after his death, people inflate him, and make him this big. Many things in those folk legends have been taken with footnotes, as if they were real and channeled into the series. That's why you have to sift through many things while watching. In 1462, during his struggle with the conqueror, Vlad has around 20,000 soldiers, and he takes 10 to 12,000 of them. He engages in a direct battle with the conqueror, but of course, in this battle, his army is defeated and scattered. He held back 7,000 men this time, saying, let me try hit-and-run tactics, attempting to attack at night, but of course, he fails at all of them. In response, the conqueror sends out the raiders. There are especially two large groups of raiders of Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror. One is the Evrenos Bey group, the sons of Evrenos, and the other is the sons of Mihail. The raiders, as the Mihail and Evrenos groups witness his hit-and-run tactics, they attack him. And with the 12,000 soldiers I mentioned to you, he pursues them. They lure him to a place where the Janissary armies have set an ambush. And as a result, he suddenly finds himself face to face with our Janissaries in a way he never wanted. He experiences a major defeat. His army is annihilated. He flees. He had about 7,000 soldiers separated. He goes to them. At that time, his capital was in Targoviste. The conqueror will take it as Targoviste. He should not enter as Targoviste. The conqueror keeps making hit-and-run attacks. For example, he releases some criminals from prisons along the way. In the palace on the left, there are people afflicted with various contagious diseases, especially in the prisons. In that period, it was called the plague, cholera, or pestilence. For example, this was depicted in the series. In the middle of the night, they raid the Ottoman camp. Then, of course, the Ottoman soldiers see that all these men are like this, injured with contagious diseases. For example, this was also depicted. Of course, it was depicted according to the series. We know that they released them, but the Ottomans did not suffer any serious damage. Also in the series, you see Mehmet Pasha. In the camp, you would think, like our burnt-out teenage boys with their heads uncovered. They wander around like this. But this man is the Grand Vizier of the Ottomans. The Grand Vizier cannot walk around with his hair uncovered. I mean, among the soldiers in the camp, these things, probably the scriptwriters or the editors of the series have never seen. They don't know at all. Those addresses, behaviors towards each other. Danube. Of course, the series consists of 6 episodes. Very long. You would think Vlad, the equal of Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror. This was one of the topics that bothered me the most in the series. They portrayed him as if he were the equal of Fatih. Now look, Fatih Sultan Mehmet opened and closed an era. He conquered Istanbul. He officially established an empire. The man you call Vlad Dracula. What is his worth? So this was one of the topics that bothered me the most in the series. He was shown as if he were on the same protocol level as Fatih Sultan Mehmet, and in the 6th episode, Fatih deals with this. 6 episodes. As if it lasted for years. For years, this man went to the mountains, acted as a bandit, and did hit-and-run attacks. That's it. Fatih Sultan Mehmet, as we say, could drown him with his spit. He really could drown him. That's why he can't confront him. He's thinking, how can I find an opportunity to do something like this? He's also trying to appear charming to the Europeans. Look, I'm standing firm against the Ottomans. Come on, give me an army. Come on, help me. But Fatih is a political genius. This was his greatest desire. To get support from the papacy. At that time, the largest state in Central Europe was the Hungarian state. To receive significant military aid from the Hungarians, for example, this emphasis is present in the series. But Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror captures the Hungarian king. He persuades him. How does he capture the Hungarian king? Conqueror? In the series, he sends Hungarian Despina, his stepmother. The Pasha is the stepmother. As in the first season on Netflix, in the second season as well, Fatih and At, they govern the state together. Look, I had reacted strongly back then too. They have a specially polished Hungarian Despina. That is, there is an approach as if Hungarian Despina is Fatih's real mother beside her son. There is a situation, those who don't know and watch might think, that she is Fatih's real mother. This is not true. Hungarian Despina, for one, is not Fatih's mother. Fatih Sultan Mehmet was born, and exactly 3 years later, Mara married Hungarian Despina. Therefore, she is not his mother 100%. Secondly, during Mara's period, this woman in the palace, the second, Mara beside her, we don't even know if there are any children. There is no information on this matter. When do these events take place? 1459. That is, he stops paying taxes. And later, the Ottomans will be completely defeated and soon captured by the Hungarians. During that period in Ceres, in other words, she is the daughter of Serbian Duke Brankovic. Second, Mara and they get married. Later, the Serbian country completely joins the Ottoman Empire. Second, Mara lives in Edirne. When Fatih conquered Istanbul, she stays in Istanbul for a while. Later, Fatih wants to send her to Serbia. For a short time, he even dedicates a church in Thessaloniki in her name. But later, this is abandoned. She is sent to Ceres. So this woman stayed in Ceres from 1459 until her imprisonment by the Hungarians in the mid-60s. She was never on behalf of Fatih. Let me go to the Hungarian king. Let me be an ambassador. These are completely fabricated lies of the series. Let me tell you that there is no such thing. Although the series ultimately worked with a Turkish team, the scriptwriter of the series, those who created the foundation are completely foreigners. And because of this, there is a brilliance, a power there. Fatih is a very great man. Where does this power come from? Of course, it comes from the Hungarian. Look, they did this again years ago. There was a film called The Favorite made by the French. At that time, I was also young. I remember it very well. It was aired on the single channel TRT. Isn't the second Mara a genius? He is a great man. The Ottoman is a very important sultan. The second Mara attributed all his power, abilities, and all the actions he took. They credited his mother, Nakşidil Sultan, and said she was French. All the modernity and greatness she saw in France, she instilled in her son, as she explained, the second. Everything Mara did was related to his French mother. They said there was no number one in the Ottoman Empire. Now the same thing is being done. Hungarian Despina is solving everything. She comes and goes. There is a spy girl in the palace. She immediately watches her, catches the spy girl. She makes her drink poison with her own hand and kills her. Is there such a thing? What did you think of the Ottoman Empire? The Ottoman Empire is a state of discipline. So, is there a spy in the palace? There is. Was she caught? You can't just say to a Hungarian, take this poison, drink it, I'm killing you, as you please. This state has its laws, this state has its justice, this state has its judges. Without questioning or investigating, you can't just act on your own like in medieval Europe, where they would immediately say, kill this one, hang that one, cut this one. In our state, during its great and powerful periods, there was justice. When there is justice, no one would dare to say, hang this one, cut that one, imprison this one on a whim. The Ottoman Empire was great because of this. States without justice are doomed to suffer. The weak always lose power. They become puppets of others. In other words, if they are strong and just, those states are doomed to collapse. But if the strong do not have the final say, and the just weak are given opportunities, these states always rise rapidly and become superpowers. The Ottoman Empire was super powerful during those times. Because justice was at the forefront, Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror captures the capital. That is the capital of Efla at that time. Of course, after capturing it, he encounters that painful scene. That was Vlad's intention anyway. to demoralize Mehmed and the Ottoman army. They enter through Targoviste. There are people in the city. For example, in the series, the city was abandoned. They enter the city, they surrender. There is the other side of the city. That is the part where they will follow Vlad. The moment they reach that large plain in front of them, they see thousands of stakes. Thousands of stakes and thousands of skeletons impaled on them. And right in the middle stands Hanzabe. Fatih, of course, is sobbing uncontrollably. He cries at the sight, collapsing to the ground. It is said that he collapsed to the ground. He collapsed to the ground and cried. He says that a normal person cannot do this. He says this is not a human being, sobbing uncontrollably. That is his purpose anyway. He tries to demoralize and then highlight himself with that brutality and blood. And unfortunately, he is successful. When you mention Dracula today, boom, the ratings immediately skyrocket. Who was Count Dracula? He was brutal. Just think about it. There is a mother nursing her child. A mother nursing her child, whatever it was about this woman that bothered this man. He had the breasts of several mothers sewn to the lips of that child. What kind of tyrant are you? How can you do such a thing? Look, their own sources, Roman sources, say that he drank blood and was addicted to it. But since our sources do not mention this, we do not go that far. But in terms of brutality, he is at the extreme. On the road, a man is traveling there with his donkey, and the man asks a question. He doesn't like the answer the man gives. He causes the man to have an accident with his donkey. How can you cause an accident with a donkey? So many things. That's why when he went somewhere and interacted with people, everyone would lower their heads. Oh, let's not interact with him, let's not talk, let's not engage, let's not get involved. To the one who goes in front of so much filth. He also caused a lot of suffering to the Hungarians. He besieges a monastery belonging to the Hungarians. There are around 400 young people in the monastery. He impales all of them. The Hungarians are also holding a grudge. So what happens next? Of course, the Sultan is not going to chase him with 150,000 soldiers. He escapes and to a castle called Poinari, which he had built on top of a mountain, also built by Hungarian nobles. Today, it is a tourist castle in Romania. It's very difficult to climb up. He takes refuge in Poinari. His wife is also with him. And there, of course, he sends raiders to Fatih, because Fatih needs to return. There is the issue of the Aegean Islands that Fatih needs to deal with. There is a problematic situation with the Venetians. Fatih says, I am returning. He says, you handle this, because there's no situation to pursue further. For Fatih, there's no situation to go after. His work is already done. His large army is exhausted. He has taken refuge with a handful of men to Poinari. But it's a very difficult fortress to capture. A peak fortress? Our raiders attack 4 times. They assault and besiege the fortress. On the 4th attempt, the raiders infiltrate the fortress. They are just about to enter. He escapes from the fortress. He leaves his wife behind. Just like Shah Ismail left his wife, he leaves his wife too. To his wife, the poor woman throws herself off the cliff at Poinari so as not to fall into Ottoman hands. In the series, there's a scene of throwing off the cliff, but then Radu and others intervene. Those are fictional, of course. In reality, there is no such thing. The woman throws herself down. His wife died at Poinari, leaving his wife and running away. What kind of a scoundrel are you? Then he betrays his soldiers. What did he do while escaping? He had the horseshoes of his horse removed. He had the horseshoes put on backwards. Now, a horseshoe is U-shaped like this. It is attached to the hoof in this way. He has them put on backwards. So, while riding his horse like this, those tracking him think he went in the opposite direction. He confuses the Ottoman raiders. There's only one thing he can do. Seek refuge with the Hungarian king. And he seeks refuge with the Hungarian king. Of course, the Hungarian king, when he takes him in, he thinks, what should I do with him? He has good relations with the Ottomans because the Sultan is very powerful. He doesn't want to confront the Sultan. He says that they don't like him either because he has hanged, killed and harmed many Hungarians. They imprison him in the Visegrad castle. Look, if you ever have the opportunity, follow me. I usually do an Austria-Hungary tour a few times a year. I have gone with many groups so far to Hungary. Whenever we go to Hungary, we visit Visegrad Castle. It is a very difficult castle to reach. Suleiman the Magnificent, during that famous German campaign, while conquering 17 European castles, he also conquered Visegrad. It is a castle that was conquered during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent. Visegrad, until that day, it was in the hands of the Hungarian king. A very difficult castle. We get off the bus at a certain point and then climb steadily. That's how we arrive. That's Visegrad. He is imprisoned in the castle for 7 years. Of course, this is a man who fought against the Ottomans and Fatih. a hero of the Christian Catholic world. The Pope is very uncomfortable. The Hungarian king is also Catholic. He says, this man serves us. He fights against our enemy. Why are you imprisoning him? The Pope sends a trusted man along with a delegation to the Hungarian king to ask why he was in prison. The Hungarian king says, this man also executed many Hungarians, impaled them, he says. And something interesting happens during those days. A letter becomes a subject, its content becomes a topic of discussion. We don't know how true it is. Count Dracula writes a letter to Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror from Hungary, from the Hungarian palace, where he is located. He says, I have learned all the secrets and details of the Hungarian palace's army. I apologize to you. I made a big mistake. I want to be your friend again. I will work for you on your behalf. He sends letters saying he is ready to provide you with all kinds of intelligence to seize Hungary and the Hungarian country. The conqueror, what does the conqueror do? He sends these letters to the king of Hungary. Do you know this topic is still being debated today? Did Count Dracula really send these pardon letters to the conqueror from the Hungarian country, from the Hungarian palace where he took refuge? Intelligence? Did he send letters containing information? Or did he not do such a thing? And the conqueror himself arranged it as if he had written the letter. Could it be possible? That's politics for you. Why not? But look, I asked you, did he do it? Or did he do it? I can't say, was it the conqueror who sent it or Dracula? But there is one known fact. When the conqueror sent the letters, the Hungarian king got very angry. He said, wow, you really are a traitor, aren't you? We welcomed you with open arms, and then he imprisons him in Visegrad. The Pope sends a delegation asking, why did you imprison this man? And then he shows them the letters. This hurt us a lot. Look, today he is spying against us for the conqueror. He says this man cannot be trusted, and the Pope's man can't say anything. Meanwhile, what's happening? The man sent by the Pope, of course, Dracula had worked thoroughly, researched who is who. They even examined the letters. They claim that the handwriting in the letter does not belong to Dracula. There are quite a few trials and such going on. Debates. Meanwhile, Count Dracula meets with this person. After the meeting, he describes the face, eyebrows, eyes, mustache, and such that he saw to an artist, and Count Dracula has his portrait drawn. The famous contraculation painting we have today was drawn thanks to this person sent by the Pope. The portrait of Count Dracula we have today was drawn through the efforts of the Pope's envoy named Nicholas. Meanwhile, Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror pushes him towards the Hungarians, and the Hungarians imprison him in Visegrad. When he is imprisoned, who takes his place on the Wallachian throne? His brother, Radu, takes the throne. I have another important criticism regarding the series on Netflix. Christianity, as always, is once again at the forefront. Now, Mara Despina, the stepmother, who Mehmed the Conqueror called mother. This woman is shown worshipping in the church in the name of Christianity. Are we uncomfortable? We are not. Neither is Mehmed the Conqueror. He gifted the church in Thessaloniki to his mother. His mother was given the title Mother of Christian Women as an honor. Mehmed the Conqueror is not uncomfortable. Neither are we. But there is something here. Episode 6, we watched. We did not see a single Muslim praying. Out of the 10 men we see throughout the series, 9 are Muslim Turks. There is not a single one praying. There is one Christian Hungarian, Despina. They immediately show her praying in a church with a shawl in her hand. Don't do it like this. Why are you avoiding showing Islam, Muslim practices, and Muslim prayers? Why are you avoiding it? Secondly, did you know that Rado became a Muslim? Dracula and his brother. They stayed in the Ottoman territory for a long time and received education, and Rado became a Muslim. A Muslim, he walked around with a Muslim turban on his head, continuously, as it is also shown in the series. But there is no information one can sign or statement indicating that he became a Muslim. There is nothing like that. Okay, he doesn't betray in the series either. It seems like he is betraying, but then we understand that he doesn't. But he is a Muslim and is placed on the Wallachian throne as a Muslim. Radu. Of course, we come to the year 1474. In those days, Radu dies. He dies as a result of an accident. A local lord there seizes control, but the Pope is going to attempt a new crusade against Fatih. In 1474, the King of Hungary says, let's release him now. He says, let's give him an army. They say, okay, a unit is given to him. He is released. But Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror had instructed the raiders in the Balkans, in that region. He said, I will be informed the moment he is released from Visegrad. He is released in 1474. Fatih is informed immediately. Fatih says, do not give him any opportunity. To seize power, reach him immediately and finish the job, he says. The Count arrives in Wallachia with the units given to him. He establishes control in Wallachia. But shortly after, within the same year, our Evreno's sons and Mihalolu raiders surround him in the forest with about 300 men, and an intense battle ensues. All 300 of his men are killed. The Count Vlad Dracula is captured. At the place where he is captured, this time the Ottomans establish a district. Yes, this is the order of Fatih. This man who claims to have impaled 23,000 people, I am voicing the conscience of all of you. With the hand of the Ottomans, Avadam, from here. May our beautiful raiders never face hardship. And they are impaled, they are killed in that manner, then their head is cut off. The head is sent to Istanbul. In Istanbul, the head. Where is my stake? Oh my God, I never thought my beanpole would be so useful in a YouTube video. Let me also find Contracle's head. One pumpkin. Look, how else can I explain it to you? I mean, look, I'm explaining the situation with special symbols. They impale his head on a stake, and in this way, they parade it through the streets. The head is paraded around. Later, it is placed on a stone of admonition, a senge ibret, where everyone can see it. It is displayed there. So, this head is probably buried somewhere in Istanbul these days. We don't know this, but the body is thrown into a swamp. Let me set my stake aside. The body is thrown into a swamp, remains there for a while, and after some time, there are weak rumors that the body was retrieved from the swamp and buried in the garden of a monastery. Also, in 2014, an interesting discovery was made, though I'm not sure how accurate it is. An Italian female student was preparing a thesis. She went to Naples, and while taking photos in the famous large Naples Cathedral, she noticed grave chapels in the garden of the cathedral, so she was photographing some of the graves there. One of the photos she took ends up in the pool of a group of academics studying Vlad and his era. They see a dragon relief on the sarcophagus. They had also heard such a rumor that Vlad was never actually captured by the Ottomans. He was smuggled to Italy by his daughter, that is to Venice. They took refuge in Naples, in the Kingdom of Naples. He lived there and supposedly died there. A very weak rumor suggests he was smuggled to Naples by his daughter, that he lived and died in Naples, and that his grave is in the garden of a church in Naples. But 95% of the data we have suggests that he was killed and his head was brought to Istanbul. Moreover, there is a symbolic grave in a monastery in Romania, as believed and known by his own people. Now, for example, this question was asked to me in the series. He opens a book. At that time, Fatih is still a child. Contracule is also a child. They play together. They open a book. From the book, they randomly open a page and try to read their fate. Now, is there such a thing? Yes, there is such a thing. We call this, in Islamic literature, we call it tawfa'ul, confusion. Tafewul is made from the Holy Quran. The Quran is the word of God. People in certain difficulties and troubles, when they cannot resolve something through consultation, which we call obligatory consultation and deliberation, they hold the book and say, "Oh Lord, how should I solve this?" They pray and open the book. It is not something done frequently, but it has been done in history. They read the verse that comes before them and try to draw a lesson from it. Do you know that after the Quran, the second most important book used in Tafewul is the Masnavi? It is the Masnavi of Mevlana. Such value has been given to Mevlana and the Masnavi, but of course I really laughed at the series. Fatih and Contracule are doing Tafewul in their childhood. Why from Homer's Iliad? Tafewul from the Iliad. There is no such thing really. When the producers are foreign, those who prepare the series always have this tendency to skew things in their favor. In other words, there is no taking up of the Quran. It will be the Iliad. Okay, we know that Fatih read the Iliad and the Odyssey in their original Latin. We know he conducted excavations in Troy as described in the Iliad. We know these things, but Tafewul from the Iliad, what is this? This is nonsense really. There is no such thing. In the series, there are always references to some European topics. For example, what is there? The counterattack will target Fatih. Fatih's army is large. What does he do? Directly attack his tent. Kill Fatih in his tent. Fatih narrates this. In history, the Battle of Darius and Alexander the Great. In the Battle of Issus, Alexander directly attacked Darius's tent because he had fewer numbers. He will also use this method against Darius. But I am not Darius. Fatih says something like, I am Alexander. There is a conversation like that there. Immediately there is an emulation of Alexander. Fatih had read about Alexander the Great when he was a child. They knew very, very well. But ultimately, they did not aspire to these. In the series, while Murad Spina is meeting with the King of Hungary, there is a dialogue. Murad Spina belittles the King of Hungary. He says that nothing remains of that great Roman Empire. In other words, Fatih did this. He says even if you are careful, he can do it. There, only the boots of the last Roman emperor remained. He says the purple boots. He says even the body couldn't be found and so on. In fact, Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror and the Ottoman army found the Roman emperor immediately after the conquest of Istanbul. He had disguised himself, but the boots on his feet were purple. The boots the Judas tree remained. The conqueror recognizes him. And this last Roman emperor was buried in an area located behind the Shehzad Mosque today. So its location is known. Until the late Ottoman period, it was a place spoken of among the people as the burial site of the last emperor. Unfortunately, during the construction activities of our Republic period, the burial site of the last emperor, which the Ottomans had protected like the apple of their eye, was destroyed. There were commentators from our country in the series All-Pass as well. They contributed. I am very grateful to them. However, there is a sad topic here. In the series, one of the female commentators talked about the spy women in the harem. Indeed, from time to time, there were spy women in the Ottoman palace, and it was said that they were killed. Look, these are rumors. Such a thing did not actually happen. I mean, of course, problematic people could emerge from the harem. If they did, they would be dismissed, or they would be sent away. In other words, they wouldn't be kept for long. So they were spies, captured, and killed. No, a stone was tied to their feet. I mean, I grew up with these lies throughout my childhood. Do you know what my dream was when I was a child? I also tell this to groups during tours. I will grow up in the future. Then I will become a diver, put on a tank, dive into the water at the palace nose, and watch the bodies of those girls with stones tied to their feet underwater. Can a 10-year-old child have such a dream? Shame on those who tell and teach this nonsense. Shame on them. We always learned it this way. So, when concubines did something wrong, or when the Sultan called them to his room and they said, "Oh, I won't come," they would immediately tie a stone to their feet, straight to Saraybonu. Hundreds of girls were thrown into the water at Saraybonu with stones tied to their feet. Look, I'm telling you, thrown into the water from Saraybonu with stones tied to their feet. Not a single girl, not one. We don't know anything like this. But if the rumors and tales among the people are going to be spoken of as if they are true, I'm sorry, I won't be part of such a historical narrative. One issue in the series that bothers me a lot is the matter of the occupiers. I mean, in the series, Fatih going to the lands conquered by his father and grandfather with his army is always portrayed as an occupation. Fatih's occupation army came, Fatih's occupation army entered like this. Fatih's occupation, it's a shame. What is occupation? At least when translating this into Turkish, say conquest or something, like whatever you say in other countries. In this sense, the local producers and commentators who support the series, I don't know. They must have been disturbed by the use of the word occupation. I definitely do not find this correct. The Ottoman Empire was not an occupying state. On the contrary, they were the occupiers themselves. The Hungarians wanted to swallow the Serbs because the Serbs were Orthodox. The Ottomans saved them, and they preserved their orthodoxy for 600 years. Is this what you call occupation, for God's sake? There is a girl named Elena in the harem. She is spying in the series, and then Mara Hatun catches her. She calls the girl over. She asks, "What's your name?" She says, "Elena." Such a thing is out of the question. If a girl was taken into the Ottoman palace, into the harem, it was because her quality was recognized, not to make her a servant. Let's get this out of our heads. The Ottoman harem was a girls' school called Dutaranu Humayun. Dutar. You know daughter. It means girl in English. Daughter means Persian girl. Duhtarani Humayun, the girls taken there, would already receive education by serving and gradually rise. In other words, a servant was not hired to serve the girl taken there. They were not taken there as servants. They would become the wives of the Sultan or students of the Enderun in the future. They would be raised as the highest quality women in the world. But the path to becoming the highest quality woman went through the kitchen. In the Ottoman education system, both boys and girls had to enter the kitchen and do menial tasks. You will enter that toilet and clean it. You will enter that kitchen, wash the dishes, chop the wood, and carry that wood. Both girls and boys were doing this. That's why there is no such thing as a maid girl. You are intelligent, you are talented. You passed some of Osman's exams, you succeeded, you are accepted into the harem. You are educated there. There are 4 types of women in the harem. Look, 1, the mother of the Sultan, the Walid Sultan. There is only 1, there cannot be 2. 2, the Sultan's wives. 3, the Khalfas and masters. That is, the women who trained the girls in the harem. The teachers, the governesses. 4, the concubines, the girls we refer to as concubines are those receiving education. Just like in the Enderun, where there are 7 classes, such as the small, the large, the campaign's chamber, the aviary, the treasury, the pantry, and the privy chamber. There are also classes in the harem. And in those classes, the girls are trained step by step. Those who come from the lowest level do the menial tasks. And as they move upward, they mature by continuing to serve. And perhaps one day, Wabda, she becomes the wife of a sultan, or the mother of a sultan. Oh, is her name changed? Of course, it is changed. A girl named Elena cannot roam around like that. She is taken in. Before entering the harem, she already receives a few years of education with a Muslim Turkish family. There, customs and traditions are taught. She learns about Islam, grows fond of it, and becomes a Muslim. She is given a Muslim name. And she never resides in the harem or Enderun with a Christian name. It would have been better if the foreigners who prepared the series had consulted a historian from us who knows these subjects. You will be surprised. There are commentators. Look, they don't ask these scenarios to the commentators. I have also participated in several documentaries as a commentator. So, the person calls you, asks if you are available, Mr. Talha, and you say you are available. Okay, they say, we will ask you some questions, and you sit down. The person asks you questions, and you provide your answers. It's not the questions they ask, they cut and edit your answers and insert them into the documentary. However, they don't give you the script of the documentary and ask you to take a look. This is what I mean. Was the script of that documentary never shown to our historians? Was it never shown at all? This is what I am curious about. In short, there was no longer a man named Contracul, and he hadn't even taken a place on the stage of history as a man that no one cared about, forgotten even by the Romanians. But what happened? Centuries later, in the 19th century, at the end of the century, a man named Bram Stoker got up and wrote a famous novel called Count Dracula. In the novel Count Dracula, he was inspired by the castles in Romania. There is Bran Castle, located 30 kilometers away from the city of Brașov. He specifically took Bran Castle as his own scale. He never came to Romania in his life. He didn't visit the places where Count Dracula roamed. He wrote the novel from where he sat, and the novel became a hit. Along with the novel, our forgotten Count Dracula was remembered again. Wow, there was such a man drinking blood like that. He supposedly died and then came back to life again. He supposedly sucked people like this, made them immortal like that, and so on. It caught on, and a lot more Dracula novels were written afterward. Scripts were prepared. Movies were made one after another. And it truly became a source of income for Romania. If you ever find yourself in Brașov, be sure to visit Bran Castle, nearby. For example, whenever I do a tour of Romania, you can go by bus from Turkey, or you can also go with your car. Start from here. First, you stop by Bulgaria, then continue on to Romania, exploring along the way. Explore these places, visit the tomb of Hunyadi Janos. For instance, when I go, people are lying in the churchyards. We talk about his history at his grave. Go to Bran Castle. It's not even known that I currently live in Bran. They say this is the dining room, that is the bedroom, and so on, but it's not even clear if our Vlad actually lived in that castle. If you get the chance, go up to Ponari Castle to truly feel like Vlad Dracula, or you can go to Visegrad Castle in Hungary. Or you can go up to Poinari Castle in Romania. His wife threw herself down. You will also see the castle that was besieged for a long time by the sons of Evrenos or the sons of Mihai, which they almost captured, but ultimately lost. The lesson we learn from all this is that Europeans, having encountered the Ottomans, only briefly in history, continue to hold in high regard even those who stood up to the Ottomans, just a little. Yes, they disregard the Ottomans. Today, if you go to Germany, where the seriousness is immense, the entire information about the Ottomans in a high school history book from grades 1 to 3 does not exceed 2 paragraphs. While in France and England, the Ottomans are hardly taught at all. They say, Ottomans? What is that? Does such a state even exist? While they are disregarded and efforts are made to make them forgotten, someone like Skanderbeg, who stood up to them just a little, is elevated to the highest ranks. And he is declared a saint and glorified by the popes. And this glorification continues even today, with novels, films, and documentaries. From this, you can better understand how great a state the Ottomans were during the time of Mehmed the Conqueror, and how much their enemies both respected and resented them. Our next video will talk about Hamza Bey. As I mentioned, at Hamza Bey's tomb in Bursa, Contracol caused an accident resulting in Hamza Bey's martyrdom. We will discuss our great statesman there at his tomb. Goodbye until we meet again.